Hello everyone, and welcome to my third prototype of my NEA project, where we'll be coding the UNO solution. In this specific prototype I've got right here, we've decided to create an account system where there'll be a bunch of registers and logins, along with connecting to a database file that I've created in SQLite with DB browser. So this is the current accounts that I've got right here. I'll explain the use of these later for the testing. But right now, I'll just briefly go through the code at hand. It won't be like last time, won't be like a lengthy explanation, I promise. I'm sorry, examiners, for that long wait, but here we go. So, here I just initialized Pygame, constructed a screen and set up some fonts with all different sorts of sizes, and imported the time variable so screens could freeze so people can recognize and comprehend pop-up fonts. Now, this function right here is to evaluate whether a username exists within this database file. Now what's going to happen is they're going to establish a connection to my database file, and it's going to create a cursor object so it can chart a connection between the query and the connection between the databases. And in this query, it's going to select all data from the user where the username will equal the parameter argument right here. Now, if there is a result, if there is data being fetched, then we can assume that the username does exist, so it isn't unique. If that isn't the case, then we would do return result as none, and then we would assume that the username is unique. This is just some except input validations where they just explain if there's an error, and finally we'll just close the connection. With the register, we'll establish our connections right here, and we are initializing our query statement where we're just going to insert in our added values. Now, within my database, I'm using user ID fields, username, password, and wins count. But with the user ID, I'm going to make this my primary key, and I've added an auto increment, which means that its values will already be established. That's the reason why it's not included into insert into user, all that kind of junk. That's because the user ID will already have an established value. Wins will always be initialized to 0. This is why this 0 is a placeholder for wins. And the username and password that the user enters will be inserted into the database. And it'll just commit to the action, and I'll give a little print statement to confirm that the users have been added to a database. And here is our error handling functions where we just display what kind of SQLite error happens if there's a connection failure, and this is going to terminate the connection. The same with logging. We establish our query system where we're just going to select all data where the username and password will equal the parameters within this check login, and it's going to try and fetch a result. Now, if a result is not fetched, that means the username and password altogether don't exist within the same row, within the same record of the database. So if we do Rasul and password, they don't exist in the same record or database. So when they're both compared with, if username and password is within this database, it'll show that there is no record where there's Rasul and password together. So then it will return no result. And if that happens, then the login is not successful. But if the return result is not none, which means if there is a presence of data being fetched from this query statement, then we can know that this account details have been matched to the user's inputs. So the login would be successful. We've got our error handling and another connection termination. This draw text function, practically the same as prototype 2 where I explained that very briefly, just a function where we draw Pygame text and pop-ups. And here is our main menu. Now, in the last statement, I explained how when it's Pygame, in Pygame, you always have a Pygame.initialize and a terminating sequence of codes where if underscore name equals main. This is the first function that will be put into the call stack, which is the main menu. So that means the user will first see this main menu function right here. And this is simply just a button selection quite similar to the wild functions that we established in prototype 2 and our player selection, but instead there's just two buttons where there's register and login, and whenever they're collided, whenever the button has been pressed, the register main function will be activated. Oh, and forgot to add this one, the login main functions will be activated too. So, and then the update will display once the functions to draw the buttons. And this is our game variable. This game variable is just a placeholder for my actual UNO game. What we're doing right here is just setting up the conditions where if you successfully log in and get past all the account obstacles that were in the way, then you should be able to access the game and it should say welcome to the game. I'll explain that later when it comes to the check login functions and the login main functions. But as of right now, this is just that little placeholder for our UNO games. In our register main, I'm just establishing the box height and the box spacing. Here, I'm just making sure that these input boxes are centered at the screen and they're centered like evenly spaced apart. These colors will ensure that the box edges will change and like change colors to inform the user that, oh look, where this input box is being activated, you're going to modify this data within this input box. So when the user is trying to like input their account data, they'll know which account they're actually accessing, which input box they're actually accessing. So there's the different activity colors or status colors. I both basically set them both to be inactive at the moment, both username and password, because the user is not going to interact with them immediately since the program starts. Just initializing to false, adding a username text that the user will like press and input to be nothing, because there'll be nothing inputted in the beginning. And this is my maximum length constraint, which is 20 characters. And the running will equal true. So when we do the when we go through the while loop, we'll do the basic Python functions where we're going to check if they're trying to close the tab by pressing that little X button right here and break away from the loop. Now, when you press the mouse button, it's just going to check if you're actually interacting with the input boxes. This will just change, activity status and activity colors. This will just change activity status and activity colors for password boxes. And this will just mean that if nothing's happening, if the user isn't clicking, making a valid mouse input, then, nothing will happen. No status change will be there. And this is the event where when a user places a keystroke. If the user is hitting an enter or return key, then it's going to evaluate whether the username is unique. And if it is, then it's going to like assign these username text and password text that the user has been inputting into this register function, where it will like insert the data into the database, and the loop will be broken. If not, then it'll just print like username already exists, please use a different username for a momentarily brief time. Backspace just checks if the username or password boxes are active, so it can determine which string it needs to like splice that last character from. And if the username is active, we'll just remove the last character from the username text. Password active, same thing. And in all other cases, this is when any other input is being placed, like an A key or H key or 2 key, all that sort. It will just check if your length accommodates to the max length and that the username is active. Then it will increment. It will extend your username string to the Unicode conversion of your keystroke. And same thing with password. This just adds some headings, and this just centers some headings, so it's always at the center. And this just renders the current text for the user, and renders the current text of the password. And it also make sure that the width of the input box matches along with the width of the password text or the username text. Just gives it for much more of a clean look. Login main has the same properties, same functions, except when you're returning it, it will just check your login and it will then say that you successfully logged in if it's correct. But the key thing here is we've established a new variable called account, which will be a placeholder for your username that will be added within the gameplay, visible during the gameplay, to show you're in this account, you're in this identity, and the loop will be broken. If not, your account will equal none. Same stuff as before, but now it will check whether your account will equal none. Basically, if you haven't logged in successfully, your account will always be none. So that means you'll not access the game function. But if your account doesn't equal none after all of that, that means you can access the game and you successfully passed all hurdles to get to this game function right here. Now, with that all being said and done, let's start this prototype 3 of our registers and login. So we're going to start it off right here, and we'll be given a register and a login field. So if we click all around, we can see that there's no valid mouse input being placed, nothing will happen. But if we hit the username, it changes its border colors, and we can type whatever we like. If we click away and type as much as we like, nothing's gonna happen. I'm sure you can hear me typing right now. So let's add a username. I'll just do my name and I'll do 987. And password, I'm gonna just call it QWERTY. If we type it, password's not doing anything. You can see it's also being censored right here. And if we open it, we'll just do QWERTY again. So QWERTY will be a password, Rasul 987 username. So if we hit our enter key, then you can clearly see that the new user has been added to the database and an SQL connection is closed. So if we go back to our database, we can see here it's not refreshed yet, but before we have two accounts, Rasul password 123, Rasul 123 password. The wins have been initialized and the user ID has been like auto increments. So if we refresh here, the auto increment will give us a user ID of 3. The password is QWERTY like expected, and our wins are initialized to 0. So the register is working perfectly. Now, let's say we do the login. You can see it's login activated, and let's try and click everywhere we can. Not working. Now, let's try and add some erroneous data to begin with. So this doesn't exist at all in the database, doesn't match, and we can see here nothing's working when we hit enter. So what happens if we give it a correct password? So I'm going to do QWERTY, and I'm going to keep the username here. If we hit enter, nothing's happening. But if we do Rasul 123, this does exist in the password in the database, but it's a mismatched username and a password. So if you enter, still doesn't work. Rasul doesn't work. As you can see, they're mismatching password and usernames. But if we do Rasul 987, it says that login access successfully logged in, and we just got that pop-up of welcome to the game before it briefly took us back to the interface. Now, one thing we should try and do is now we can register a new account, but let's try and add a non-unique username. So I can enter what password I want, and it's going to tell me username already exists, please choose a different username. So the unique function works. And if we try to do this 456 this time and add, let's say, the same password, it's going to register our account right there. And we can see that if we refresh our page, we will get the same passwords, but a unique username and a different primary key field. So Whilst this may be a short prototype, it is a very imperative prototype that will serve as the basis for our future game modes and our future account modification rewards, where they're going to like increment your wins and possibly provide a leaderboard where it'll give you like your top users that have like won this amount of times. That's probably going to be the aim of it for the examiners that are watching. But right now, this is the finished prototype where we have managed to create a login and a register function, along with input fields that are properly functioning. And I just forgot to check. Sorry, my bad. I just realized that I haven't managed to check um, the widening function right here. You can see I'm clicking as much as I can, but if you count the characters right here, there are 20 characters as a maximum. So that means that you're not going to have any more characters. You can't click any more characters. You can't input anything else. It shows that the program is completely restricting the user from going beyond that length. So that's all I wanted to show. I'm pretty sure even if I try type 20 characters, it does not exceed that box. So yeah, the asterisks kind of hard to test, but like I made sure that the password also like widens its box as well. Like if we don't have an asterisk and we do like a show password function in the future, the box will widen to accommodate that length. So there we go. I just close it. Book variable account. That's because I just forgot to unhighlight it real quick. Not that big of a deal. I'll probably fix up, do some tweaks about it in my fourth prototype, where I'll try to add some game functions. But the main goal, where I managed to have proper register functions and login functions, has been successfully completed within this prototype. And in the next prototype, we're just going to modify that placeholder right here, so we don't get any errors like that where, oh, where's the account? What have you done to the login interface and all that kind of stuff? So there we go. I hope you enjoyed the video, everyone, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.